States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. First item on the agenda would be the secretary to call the roll.
Dickinson,
Yes.
Alvarez, Petrus.
Here.
Playhammer.
Here.
Bushian. Here. Fullerton.
Here.
Chowski.
Yes.
Gunn.
Here.
Walperly.
Here.
And over.
Here.
Solicitor Carl here.
Here.
And Brian Hall will be.
Brian's probably on his way. Has everyone had a chance to read the minutes of March 14th?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
The motion's in order.
Yes. Make a motion to approve the minutes of the March meeting.
Motion made by Candy. Is there a second? Second by Ron Fullerton. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I overlooked one important thing here. This meeting has been advertised according to law, posted on the bulletin board in the borough clerk's office, and notified to the Retrospect newspaper on January 24th of this year. Thank you. We have a resolution prepared for the,
Yes, the resolution has been emailed in and circulated. The resolution is memorializing the resolution for the application for the minor subdivision. The applicant was John Liberkowski Jr., was purchasing a strip of ground from his neighbor. His neighbor's address was 97 North Reed. The purpose of the subdivision was to use for additional parking of his vehicle on that lot. There were no variances requested as memorialized in this resolution. The applicant was granted a waiver to use the vehicle on a gravel parking area rather than the paved surface. But the applicant, as a condition, was required to replace the concrete sidewalk and install concrete driveway apron as set forth in the letter of the board engineer of March 6, 2012. So you should move the resolution tonight as a memorializing resolution approving the minor subdivision with the waiver and condition noted.
you take a roll call.
Yes, you need a roll motion. to
Make the
approve
motion.
in a second.
I'll second the motion. Motion made by Candy Craver, second by the chair. Well, there,
Do
have a
roll call.
roll call vote, please.
Dickinson,
Yes.
Alvarez is absent. Petrus. Playhammer.
Yes.
Bushian. Yes. Fullerton.
Yes.
Chowski.
Yes.
Gunn.
Yes.
Walperly.
Yes.
And over.
Thank you. Motion stands as read. We have any new business to conduct this evening? Did you said there was, is there anyone with any new business to bring in front of the board?
Would that be me now?
That would be you, sir.
And put it on
Come up, do as you need, state your business into that microphone, please.
Hey there, folks. I'm Rob Swing, Anthony Juarez, running Chandler. I'd like to talk to you guys about doing solar. I want to do solar on my building. I just need to know what the setback is off the property line, off the side of the property, or, I guess it's really just the side. I want to do an awning along the front of the building and on the side of the building where the tables are, and do solar. So, just need to know where I stand, what I need to do. I have the application. I didn't fill it out yet.
I know there's pretty significant setbacks on the Black Horse Pike, because people, they can't even have signs hanging from their properties on either side. That's on the north side of the Black Horse Pike. Because of the right of way goes always right up to the buildings. Well, how you could, I would defer you to talk to our engineering staff.
I have pictures.
Yeah, I know.
I'm not anywhere near the street. It's gonna be.
I know where you are, but.
It's basically awnings attached to the building.
I think what the applicant should do is, the first step is to either have a survey of your property.
I do.
Indicate on the survey just a rough idea of where you intend on locating the solar panels or awnings, or whatever you're going to do. And probably the first step is to speak with the zoning officer. Zoning
Try that.
officer can indicate where there is deficiencies, the side yard setback or rear yard, depending on where you're locating. And then any permits that you're going to need, you can find out at that same time. If the zoning officer is telling you you need variances to do this, then your application has to be filed before the board. At that point, you'll need a more detailed survey that exactly shows setbacks that the engineer will have to review and concern for runoff if anything does occur, depending on what kind of service you're putting down.
David Christian,
I'm sorry, I'm probably area, you said Anthony's or Reeves?
Anthony's, please don't say that.
who's there?
Well, you can say it here, there's nobody here, I'm competing with you.
No, competition is good.
Sorry about that.
But what actually, when you're before the board, determine what variances, if any, that you might need. If you don't need any variances, you still might be required to submit a site plan review showing, in a minor sense, where these panels are going to exist and if they're going to do any impervious.
They sent me here.
But I think.
All I was asking before I pay an architect to draw it,
Don't have an awning now.
I have the canopy before the neon, just for the rain runoff and the lighting. But I want to come almost all the way out to my parking bumpers.
Oh, I see.
Okay, I'm not gonna go into the parking lot, no poles for cars to hit or anything, just up to the bumpers, and then the whole left side of the building where they sit on the tables now. So there'll be no umbrella, it'll just be an awning with panels there. I think it's 88 total panels. It's 23,000 kilowatt hours. That's what I use a year. So, I have the survey, I have pictures, Google Earth pictures of it, and I can show you guys everything I have.
But the only thing I would do is caution the board, if you're going to kind of present where these panels are going to be, there's not an application before the board. On an informal basis, the board can say, well, we would not necessarily be opposed to panels, and you probably can submit your application. It's not something the board would be adverse to, but you don't want to prejudice the board in any sense as far as prejudging without an opportunity for a formal hearing or public participation of where the panels are going to be. I really believe the first step is to get the zoning officer to define whether or not the panels can be located in the area that you're requesting, and if you need any variances. And then if you still want to put them there, even though you need variances, then you make your formal application before the board, and you'll know, I'm making an application to install panels, I need a side yard variance or a rear yard variance. You'll spell all that out, and that's what you'll advertise and serve on your residents within 200 feet and in publication. But there's really not too much the board.
It's your house.
I see where you're going with that. In other words, if he complies with everything, we then have to keep
Yeah,
that.
if it's.
I've lost
if it's-
over a month. I've asked him how many times. All I want to know is 7 feet enough off my side property? I already submitted the papers. I filled out all the paperwork and I was sent here.
In there
And the
now, 40
construction
meetings.
office.
All right, I'll go. That's it.
I don't know, Brian, if you can answer any quick questions. I mean, 7 feet might not be, usually standards are around 10 feet to 15 feet. I don't know what it would be in the borough.
Do you know what zone you're in?
I have the paperwork. I've checked it.
I mean, I can look at it real quick and just give you some off the record.
Yeah.
Is that it for me? Just go talk to the person.
We're gonna get Commissioner Babbitt coming here now.
I'll give him the
Okay.
paper.
Gentlemen here.
This is actually more detailed.
Hey, Mr. Babbitt, good evening.
So the gas station's there now.
The board of Regents,
Give me like 10 minutes.
setbacks will be required in the zone.
What's your address up there?
1001.
Were you able to determine, Brian, what the setback?
I'm looking at what his zone is right now, so.
side yard setback, should total 30 feet and not be less than 1/3 of the total side yards. So if he's got 20 feet on one side, he could have 10 feet on the other.
That's negative.
Oh, this is-
Chris, have you been out to the site?
I've been up there before.
What, have you measured it? Have you looked at his paperwork?
Looked at the paperwork, actually measuring everything on the survey.
If he doesn't need any variances, Chris, do you see any other problem with the applicant trying to do this on the site, like, from looking at the site?
What they're doing is expanding the use, so it requires planning board approval, commercial use.
Expanded the use.
Expanding the building. That's what we're doing. Anytime you expand an existing use in the commercial zone, you have to get planning board approval. That's why you're here.
The applicant, for what he's doing, the extent that you're just listening to your comments, probably would require a minor site plan to come in, whether you need variances or not. But before you submit that application, you want to know whether or not you need a variance for side yard.
Sure.
So, I mean, so that your application is complete, then the board has a complete picture of what they're going to be reviewing and discussing as part of the public hearing. So you have to know what your side yard is, and when you install these, how much of that side yard you are using up. And if your panels are too close, less than 10 feet, let's say, you might need a variance for side yard to put them where you should put them. And then the board will have to make that determination as to whether or not you meet the appropriate test to approve or deny those variances for side yards.
Gotcha. That's what I want is the setback before I pay an architect to draw it,
Right.
right, to make it actual physical.
You see this is the box?
Well,
When you make your
yeah,
application,
spells it
you'll
out
need a
here,
survey
so.
actually showing where there's going to be and what fastening does it do to the ground. But there's nothing the board can do at this point unless there's a reason.
Talking about front yard or side yard?
He's talking side.
This is a commercial zone, this is not general office here.
Right.
This is commercial. So his side, his front yard is 5 foot, his rear yard is 10 feet. Doesn't define what the sides are in the commercial zone, which usually means lot line.
So we have to get a survey and put it.
Well, he has a survey. This is what I received, a survey. And I mean, I don't know what kind of addition he's talking about. Are we building a structure underneath of this?
Solar.
We're building some, just solar panels?
It's just an awning for solar panels.
But it's still an awning, which creates an increase in,
Well, okay, the definition of a structure is a combination of materials to form a construction for occupancy, use, or ornamentation, whether installed on, above, or below the surface of a parcel of land.
I guess my contention is he needs your approval, not variance wise. I didn't see any issues with variance. But anytime a commercial use expands in any way, requires planning board approval.
If he makes the application, goes to the variance, the board has to entertain
Absolutely.
has to entertain the application.
I think he's here tonight to determine whether or not he wants to move forward or not.
Correct.
Well,
I know we can't give him any advice or tell him what he can do or what he can't do, but as far as variances are looked at here, I don't see
I would
variances.
defer to the solicitor to make the determination.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if from what the engineer is indicating, that if the ordinance does not define a setback for the commercial zone.
Well,
It defines side yard,
yeah,
rear yard and front yard, but doesn't define side yard. And usually it's because you have what you have on the pipe, where you have 0 lot lines, stores stacked up on top of each other.
there's a discrepancy between the chart in the ordinance and the actual reading of the ordinance. In the verbiage, side yards actually refers you to the GO, General Office District, which is what I read earlier, 30-foot aggregate setback for the addition of the both side yards should be 30 feet, with the minimum of one side yard being 1/3 of that. So you could have a minimum of 10 foot and a 20 foot on the other
So I
side.
think he
I
has.
clearly have some plenty on the other side. So it has to be 10 feet off.
So you have to be 10 feet off of this property line for your panels. And if,
If this key is right, it's showing over 10 feet. Key shows 1 inch per 20 feet.
right, it looks like it's about 7 feet from property
He
line.
told me 7 when he did that, but I
Okay.
can confirm and make sure it's 10.
He's already has impervious area in that, so he wouldn't be increasing impervious at all. It would just basically be a structural setback,
Site plan.
you know, and with that, he'd need a variance.
Need a variance because he's 7 feet.
Right.
So,
Well, no, I'll make it 10. That's
so,
fine.
well, that's probably what you should gain out of this discussion, that you want to try to come in with your site plan without variances. It makes your application a lot more favorable that you're not seeking any variances. So if you know you have to be that 10 feet, you should design it if you can, that you're meeting the ordinance requirements.
Agreed.
And then come in with your minor site plan application, which would be the survey, photographs, and anything else that you need. Bring your expert with you that has prepared the survey plan for review by the board.
That would be-
You look
The second Wednesday of May now, right?
The bulk area.
So this is a site plan application without variances, and he has to make the site plan application.
I
from
don't know if they can push it off to the other side, I'll have to have them lay it out. I want to get the whole 88, because I want to get all the kilowatts I can, because I'm 1,200 hours a month in the summer. For electric, that's pretty brutal.
See, the only thing I had for the application was the survey. Didn't have any other information, how it's being supported, any of that, so
I don't have it either.
that's why I based it.
And doesn't a commercial application require services other than turn?
Well, if you're incorporated, are you an individual proprietor, are you incorporated?
LLC.
You should probably come in with are you a sole member of the LLC? Well, the statute says that a corporation has to come in by a representative. A sole member LLC, limited liability company, you can come in representing yourself, as long as you're the sole member, no other members.
Good, I wanted to remove any doubt.
Awesome, thank you. Okay. So I'll fill out the application, I should submit it prior to the meeting?
But you'll have to submit it at least 10 days prior to the meeting, and you have to provide notice to all the residents within 10 feet, and you have to, how many copies?
Even without worrying about a variance?
200 feet.
You should do your full publication to everyone. I think it doesn't matter.
Even if I'm not needing a variance?
Right, your application should indicate that no variance is requested.
Okay.
But does that have to do with residents on the other side of each share road?
Anyone within 200 feet.
Because he's within 200 feet of Gloucester Township.
Well, then you'll have to, your ordinance probably says you have to notify Gloucester Township as part of your notices.
I don't think it was.
And anything that's gonna have any semblance of any traffic impact or whatever, you have to notify the, what do you call it? The contiguous boundaries of that township.
Or you at least consult with an attorney, give you some direction. You might want to do that.
It's
That'll work.
not true, it's easy as it looks.
No, it's certainly not. Okay.
But it's not as hard as it seems either.
I'm sorry?
It's not as hard as it seems either. You're here, you're getting advice.
Oh, yeah.
I think you're gonna be fine. You know, you're asking all the right questions, and Mr. Mack is here to help you out, so.
Okay. I really think it's just the ones on Otter Branch behind me, right? I mean, within 200 feet, I don't think anybody's really.
Any
Depends
direction.
upon where they make the mark, and, it could be center of the lot, could be end of lot lines, wherever they determine that radius is.
How do I know that?
You have to submit a letter to the borough clerk requesting all property owners within 200 feet of your block and lot.
George Pinto.
Okay.
Then you're gonna have to make an advertisement for the hearing.
I have to put something in the newspaper for it? Okay. On top of doing the 200 feet of residence? Okay. And that's certified letters to each of them?
Correct.
Okay.
Your application package should have all
Right.
those instructions in there.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
okay.
when you get the application package, it should tell you. And you only have to serve notice on those that individual or residents that you receive from the tax office. That's the certified list, and that's the list you go by.
Okay. Perfect.
bring your green card with you. It should say that, but when you get the
I
return
was
card
just gonna
back,
ask, how do
be
you know I
sure,
accept
be
it?
sure to bring that
Okay.
with
You-
you.
You'll have to show proof of service.
Okay, that's fair. Okay. Do I have to tell the gas station next thing to do?
If he's on the list, yes.
It's Magnolia, so I'm really the first property in Runnymede. So I possibly have Magnolia in front of me that's close down to it.
Yeah, you probably do.
Well, only has to read one, either the first one or the last.
Now, you should see when there's an accident on New Sharon Road, when police pull up on the job, they don't know who's going to write the accident report.
I've seen it all. That motorcycle was cracking my parking lot. All right, thank you, folks.
All right, thank you. Have a nice evening.
See you next month.
Okay, so thank you, good to help. Anyone else in the audience that would like to address the board on any new business? Would you please state your name, address, and your nature of your business into that microphone?
Peter Marks, 8 Thorn Holden Avenue, Haddon Heights, New Jersey. The reason I'm here today is my fiance is inquiring about opening up a business in the township of Runnymede.
I'm sorry, but take the microphone out of the thing, I'm having trouble hearing
How about that? Okay. My fiance is looking to open up a business here in Runnymede on Black Horse Pike. It is an astrology boutique, that's what the name of the shop would be. Specializing in creating personalized astrology charts and part retail. She would also include services like yoga lessons and chakra balancing, and a few other different services. But when we came in and spoke to Chris Mega, he's told us pretty much to come talk to the board and see what they have to say.
I guess your first concern is it a permitted use in the area that you're looking at? Do you have on the Blackhorse specific location on the Blackhorse site?
Not at this current moment. I mean, there are quite a few places that are for rent.
I mean, if it's permitted by zoning, that's the first thing I think you have to determine, find out the location that you want to be in.
Okay.
If the building that you want to move into as a tenant or whatever, if it is a permitted use, that's the first most hurdle. And then if you're not doing anything exterior-wise, you don't have to worry about formal type site plan. If you're a compatible use and not a major change of use, you might not even need a site plan. Minor site plan, if it's not a change of use. Most ordinances require, if you're doing a change of use, that the applicant comes in with a minor site plan so the board knows what kind of impact your business is going to put on the immediate community and the community in general, as far as
Okay.
parking, lighting,
Traffic.
all those kind of things. So if they're all there and you're not a major change of use, you should be able to get your zoning permit.
Okay,
What we have in the ordinance.
The reason is he's here tonight is because we do have an ordinance that does prohibit it.
Okay, so then it has to come in for a use variance. If you're not a permitted use, then you'll have to come before the board for a use variance with your publication notice. And the burden is heavy on the applicant to show, to convince the board why your use should be granted.
But what is the actual use that's not permitted? I mean, is there,
There's a defined ordinance. If you go online to the borough website, you can download the actual ordinance and it'll spell out pretty much astrology, spiritual stuff, fortune telling. It's pretty detailed.
now there was an actual, just to mention, there was a, I guess it was like a psychic convention here last year in Runnymede at one of the hotels. And I think it's kind of an annual thing.
That could be a possibility. That's not actual business.
Okay.
That's, another business entertaining a convention.
So if you do a convention or something like that, then it's permitted.
I would think so, if it's within the hotel business, but not to operate on a, daily basis or, we wouldn't issue a mercantile license unless you would get approval from the board.
So I'd have to have an actual,
You need a use variance is what they're saying,
okay.
which requires them to change to allow you to do something like that. And then you would have to prove to the board what you would be doing and how that would the borough has already deemed that a prohibited use.
So what would be the procedure of
We
getting?
would file an application before the board, and get that from the borough clerk. And then, it would be a formal application, and like they said, I can't fill you in on all the details of what has to be done for that procedure. The solicitor can, and or borough engineer.
So get the application, fill it out, and then I'd have to.
Do the same thing it's in, notify property owners, advertise.
So first, you would be determining where you would want to do this.
I can have
Have
that
your place
specific
ready.
address.
Make sure you, if you're a tenant, I would say you should make sure you have a lease agreement, so that you're not wasting your time with an application where a landlord might not sign a lease agreement. You want to make sure you have that lease agreement signed, and make condition upon approval of your planning board for your use.
And what do I do if I have a lease and the board refuses?
Well, that's why you should not, you should sign the lease, but the effectiveness of that lease is contingent upon board approval. If you don't get the approval, then you're not bound by the terms.
Okay. All right, well, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Has everyone received their their communications from Mr. Carter and Rowan, and also from Mr. Lazu?
We were just requesting this to the board, so to make sure all the board members have copies of those letters that were circulated. It doesn't require any action, it's just for your files or review. It's circulated in your.
Did you have your name, sir, your name?
Sorry?
Did you give us your name?
Yeah.
Did you have it?
Robert
Okay.
Sweeney.
June has the name. In reference to the communications from Mr. Carter and Rowan, the borough, as a result of the last planning board meeting, has the matter under advisement, and at the last council meeting, they appointed a committee to look at the ordinance that was passed and try to come to some satisfactory solution. I believe I was appointed to the committee, and Mr. Petras, did you elucidate on who else was?
Yes, the committee consists of Vera Calvadas, Councilman Kizulewski, myself, Chairman of the Planning Board, Mr. Dickinson, and member John Dunn.
So, really, we're waiting for a meeting with them, so we can talk about some possible solutions or alternate solutions or whatever. And at that point, we would notify the applicant what the findings of the meetings were. Is there any other business to come before the board? I'll now move the meeting to Good and Welfare. Any member of the public that would like to speak, please advance, give your name and address at the microphone.
Mr. Chairman, seeing as no one from the public wishes to speak, I make a motion to close the public portion of the meeting.
Yes, a motion and a second to close the Good and Welfare portion of the meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, the ayes have it, and the Good and Welfare portion of the meeting is now adjourned. They have a motion on the floor for an adjournment at the present time.
Make the motion.
Second.
Motion made and second for adjournment. All those in favor?
Aye.
The meeting stands adjourned at 7:32. So, thank you very much for your attendance.